Hey guys, hope you had a good weekend. And I got some videos coming out today, so be on the lookout for those. First, we got more Gamers Are Dead articles, more of this damage control from the media, and we're gonna cover it. So I'm basically keeping a record of every article that I come across. If you come across one, tell me about it in the comments, or if you can reach out to me on Discord, send me a link to it, and I will make a video on it. So let's go ahead and look at this one. This is from The Verge. You might know The Verge. They reported on Shirtgate. I don't know if you guys remember Shirtgate, but that was the scientist that landed a satellite on an asteroid or a meteor. I'm not sure like what the difference between those two is. I think a meteor is more apt, or a comet. It doesn't matter. He did something that's never been done before, and what people remember from it is the sexist shirt he was wearing that drove him to tears, that a woman got for him, and it was a whole thing. And The Verge, I believe, was one of the people who broke the story, essentially calling him a sexist, that his shirt was problematic despite the fact that he accomplished a scientific milestone. But anyway, so The Verge is chiming in on Gamergate, and they had this article: "The return of Gamergate is smaller and sadder. A group of gamers has mobilized a harassment campaign against a story consultant company, marginalized developers, and journalists in protest of what they see as forced diversity in gaming," which they put in quotes. All right, a couple things about this right off the bat. The return of Gamergate is not really an accurate way to frame this. As I've said, Gamergate never really went away. It was just that some people who thought that the goals of Gamergate were accomplished stopped talking about it. But people like me, people involved with our other pop culture spheres like Star Wars, like film and television and Doctor Who and Star Trek and video games and comic books and all of that, never stopped, because it is an assault on our culture. It's not a culture war per se. It is a group of people with a certain ideological focus trying to destroy everything we love. That's it. And they're doing it because they're narcissists, because they can't live in a world where they don't see themselves in everything. And they also see themselves in everyone that they oppose. That's what their narcissism is. That's why they always project. That's why they're always telling you that you are the thing that they are doing, right? When they call you racist and sexist, they're showing you that that's what they are, because they're narcissists. When you can only see the person in the mirror, then you only see the bad in other people, which is really just your negative traits being sort of reflected at you, and you can only see the good or the victimhood in yourself. So that's what's happening. That's what we're dealing with. It's very simple, okay? And so Gamergate is not returning. It's simply people who did not know this was going on that are now learning that it's going on. And people like me who have always known this has been going on for at least, well, more than 10 years. Okay? Um a group of gamers has mobilized a harassment campaign against a story consultant company, marginalized developers, and journalists in protest of what they see as forced diversity in gaming. So forced, yes, it is, because these consulting firms, and Sweet Baby Inc. is not the only one, are in fact applying massive amounts of pressure on game development studios to diversify and essentially give them, more importantly, give these consulting firms powerful positions of influence over the development of their games, whether that's writing, consultation, changing characters, race swapping, whatever. And they are saying, if you don't do this, we will essentially destroy you reputationally. Okay, so yeah, that's happening. That's not debatable. That's just what's going on. Like, there's no, it's not a wild idea. This is happening. So let's get into the article. The Discord server at the center of Gamergate 2.0 is, in some respects, like any other online community. While I was there, I observed people talking about their day, their jobs, and their interests. Its members streamed themselves playing Bejeweled and showed off their personal video game development projects. But one chat room over, the server was filled with racist memes, sexist and ableist slurs, anti Semitic messages, and incitations of violence against women and people of color. And at the center of it all was one video game narrative development company, Sweet Baby Inc. All right, so when these people say this stuff, first you have to do is you have to say, okay, this is the internet. I can't confirm or like any of the shit that she's claiming. I am in the Discord server, and like any other Discord server, there are people that shit post and they say stuff that's funny and it's not politically correct, but that doesn't make it dangerous. There's just a way that internet people communicate, especially men, that is just for fun. And there's a saying, right? There's a saying that men will, what is it, they will insult you and not mean it, and women will compliment you and not mean it. I believe it goes something like that. It's simply the way that men, especially young men, interact, and there's nothing harmful or dangerous about it. But of course, because this is a woman writing the article and she feels afraid or whatever, uncomfortable, we have to do something. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's a meaningless thing. And by the way, speaking of anti-Semitic, I'm pretty sure this woman is pro-Palestine, right? So I don't know. Does that qualify, or is it okay when you're doing it to like the establishment colonizers? Like depending on where you're positioned determines whether or not it's okay. And do you not think that Sweet Baby Inc.'s like CEO Kim Belair is herself like racist or sexist because she insists on excluding white men, and a lot of the people who work in her company do? No, of course not, because when the left says, when they make accusations of racism and sexism, they don't really mean it. This goes back to what I was saying before about projection. They don't actually care about these things. They only do this because they know you care, right? A person who is truly racist, whatever that means, is not affected by being called a racist, right? If you go up to a Klansman and you say you're racist, the Klansman will probably shrug and say, yeah, that's kind of the point. So they only say this to people who aren't racist or sexist because they know it will cause you to react. You'll be like, no, wait, no, I'm not. That's not me. And that's how they win. This is why you never apologize. This is why you never compromise, and you don't take their accusations seriously because they obviously don't know you, right? So it goes back to an old saying, right? Offense is never given, it is only taken. So it's their choice. This growing group of people want to believe themselves a new incarnation of Gamergate, a harassment campaign started in 2014 that targeted women speaking out against misogyny in video games industry. That's not true. Again, they weren't targeting women. A lot of people that were supportive of Gamergate were women. Not that that matters, because it shouldn't. Even if it was 100% men, that doesn't change the fact that Gamergate was right about the ethics in journalism, although that is only the tip of the iceberg. And the fact that we're still dealing with this right now is proof of that. Back then, the harassers had used obfuscating tactics, cloaking their oftentimes violent harassment in the veneer of legitimate complaint. Again, that doesn't mean anything. That just means so-and-so said something in a way that I don't like, and they were trying to be clever. Again, they're showing their ass. This is what they do. They're constantly reporting on themselves. Social media gave a platform to those legitimate complaints, while the games industry itself remained largely silent, allowing the movement to grow into a many-tentacled behemoth that bolstered the ranks of the alt-right movements that plague our political landscape to this very day. So there's an admission there that it is not something that disappeared and came back. It is something that always existed, except that she wants to frame this as an alt-right movement. Now, I'm sure that many of you are tempted to jump into the comments and say, look, man, I'm not alt-right. I took the political compass test. I'm center-left, whatever it is. Stop it, okay? That's not relevant. Your actual beliefs don't matter because these people have put you in a box, and that is where you will be, and no amount of bargaining is going to change that. That is what it is. So you might as well not do that, because the thing is, one of their tactics, and this is something that people have to understand, when they put you in the alt-right box or the right-wing box or the conservative box or the white supremacist box or whatever it is, they are doing this in part to divide the rest of us. Because if they do that, then you're going to have people who are saying, well, look, I'm going to do whatever I can to fight against like whatever bigotry you claim exists on my side, while also trying to maintain my position. That is the purpose of these allegations, is to divide us. You have to like abandon that, forget about it. Who cares what somebody believes? Who cares like what someone's personal beliefs are, as long as we're all on the same page in terms of like wanting, our culture to be healed of all this ugliness. Period. Right? Alt-right doesn't mean anything. It never really did mean anything, right? That's why it's so easy to throw around. Trust me, I know, because I've been doing men's issues advocacy or men's rights activism, what do you want to call it, for the past 10 years, and I've been called a far right, Nazi the whole time, even though like that has nothing to do with men's issues like fatherlessness and circumcision and child custody, etc. Has nothing to do with those things. But it doesn't matter, because the purpose of it is to plaster you with this label, and then it gives you like the social leprosy, and no one wants to talk to you because they don't want to be associated with it. This is what I mean. It's designed for that purpose. It doesn't mean anything. So just ignore it when they say alt-right. Just laugh it off and keep going, because it doesn't mean anything. And they don't even understand it. They don't understand what fascism is. They don't understand what Nazism is. They don't understand what right wing is. They don't understand what Christianity is. They don't understand what conservatism is. They don't understand these things. They just know that there's a negative connotation, and then they apply it to anyone that they disagree with. So it's pointless. I mean, I'm serious. Just abandon it, okay? In fact, if you are a Christian or you are conservative or right wing, embrace it and feel no shame, because there is no shame in having a set of values and principles. Okay, there's no shame in that. Anyway, but this time, instead of assembling under the false banner of ethics and journalism, this new campaign has chosen wokeism and Sweet Baby as the focus of their grievances. Yeah, because wokeism is leftism. It's just like a rebranding of the same communist stuff. It's communism. That's all it is. It's the same shit. So like, we can call it woke, we can call it communist shit, we can call it progressive, we can call it far left, we can call it Marxist, we can call it a Stalinist, Leninist, Maoist, whatever. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's all about the cultural revolution and essentially like iconoclasty of Western society. That's what it is, and they're using culture to do it. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, wokeism and Sweet Baby as the focus of their grievances. The result has been a wave of bigoted harassment targeting marginalized developers, journalists, and gamers. Again, the fact that you're qualifying these people as marginalized, again, you're just showing your ass. Like, are people who are marginalized somehow protected from criticism? Like, is there like something that because they're marginalized they can't be criticized? Are they above criticism? Is this marginalized privilege or something? Because I promise you, if it was a non-marginalized developer, journalist, or gamer that made the same bad arguments, they would get the same blowback. But you wouldn't be able to use their marginalized category to protect them, so you'd have to like not say anything or throw them under the bus too, which says more about your principles than it does about ours. Because trash is trash. It doesn't matter what color it is, right? On social media, the employees of Sweet Baby are subject to a deluge of death threats. No, that's not true. None of this has been proven, so I'm sorry, but that's just not happening. And if you respond to it by saying, hey guys, please don't do death threat, you're giving these people ground. Like, they have to prove that this happened, and they can't. They have literally sent death threats to themselves in an effort to try to prove that they're getting death threats. They're not getting death threats. And by the way, how do you even define a death threat? Like, again, this is all so like weak. It doesn't actually have any legs to stand on. Developers who've spoken out in support of Sweet Baby are faced with similar treatment, with several making their accounts private in an attempt to stem the tide of abuse. Again, that doesn't prove anything. Just because somebody said, I made my account private to avoid abuse, doesn't mean that there was abuse there to begin with. They could have just made their account private so that they can make the claim that they're being abused. Journalists reporting on the story have become subject to the same harassment they're covering. Again, I have not seen any of this. The worst thing maybe is that people are like, well, I'm not going to buy your games because they're trash. And maybe they're like sharing that information online. People have a right to do that. We still live, at least in the United States, we still live in a relatively free country where people can share ideas with each other. You can't stop that. The resulting frenzy has been amplified by major actors in the right-wing media sphere, including libs of TikTok, Matt Walsh, Ian Miles Chong, and Elon Musk. Again, this is another tactic. You guys have to, like, if you don't know this, you have to like get wise on this shit, because it's gonna happen all the time. Here's what they do, okay? The left ignores people with like legitimate grievances that they don't like gamers, like in this case, right? So the left ignores people involved with Gamergate 2 that are essentially supporting Cabrutus Rambo and the Sweet Baby Inc. detected Discord server and Steam group. Okay, they ignore them, and then they just and when they don't talk to them, they don't give them a platform, but instead they just throw stones from their respective websites, from The Verge, from Kotaku, from PC Gamer, from thegamer.com, whatever they are, Destructoid, Rock Paper Shotgun, all those that was back in 2014, they did the same thing. And then what inevitably happens is non-left-wing sources approach the people involved with Gamergate or Sweet Baby Inc. or whatever. Like, they give them a platform. And it's not necessarily because we're on the same side. Like, I have issues with Matt Walsh. I have issues with Ian Miles Chong. Okay. I don't know Elon Musk's like politics. He hasn't been very like direct, but the media says he's a far right wing guy or whatever. I don't know what that even means, because I thought that right wing people hated the environment. Elon Musk has done more for the environment than everyone else combined, basically, with the Tesla and all that, right? At least as far as I know. But because he also happens to believe in freedom of speech, and giving people a platform on Twitter, that makes him right wing, and that's a bad thing, right? So what they do is the left ignores you, they don't give you a platform, they don't treat you like a human being, and then somebody comes along, whether that's side scrollers or the Daily Wire or libs of TikTok or Elon Musk, and they say, okay, I'll hear you out. And then they say, they're all right wing now, because the right was the only, or the non-left is really a more precise way of saying it. The non-left gave them a platform. And so now they're all right wing. This is how they're able to throw us into the right wing box, by the way. Like, I was, in 2015, I think it was my first time meeting up with the other people involved in Honey Badger Radio, which if you're not familiar with Honey Badger Radio, it's the channel I worked at before. I currently work at now, that I started out when I was doing my podcasting and stuff. And we went to it was in 2015, and I was there with Allison, Karen, Dr. Randercam, Anna Cherry, and Rachel, and many others, Hannah Wallen, etc. And we went to Calgary, Alberta, in Canada for an expo. And I think we were there one day, and we were there in support of Gamergate. And long story short, we all got kicked out. We got kicked out because we were critical of feminism, because we've always been critical of feminism, because feminism is the sort of like, it is the predominant framework under which we discuss everything in our society. It is the ubiquitous cultural norm of society is feminism. Okay. So we were critical of that because it obviously excludes a lot of conversations that should be taking place. And this is the only way you can advocate for men is you have to like make space. You have to cut through the feminist lies. So we got kicked out of the expo because we were critical of feminism. Some people are like straight up anti-feminist like myself. And no one would talk to us about it, but there were lots of articles written saying, oh, you know, these misogynists supported Gamergate and they were kicked out, blah, blah, blah. And we didn't hear from anyone. And then eventually Rebel Media, which is sort of like a Canadian version, I guess, of the Blaze, they approached Allison for an interview and they wanted to talk to her about her experience and get like her perspective. So because they gave her a platform and allowed her to talk, then the left-wing media saw that and they were like, they're right-wing. So it's a trap, basically. And I mean, like, it's only a trap if you allow it to affect you and like allow it to impact your sort of like, you know, feelings about yourself and what it means to be like right-wing or whatever. You have to abandon that because this is the tactic they're going to use. Like inevitably, well, this has already started happening with Gamergate 2. There will be some sympathetic, platform that will come along and they will like talk to somebody involved with Gamergate 2 that is supportive of, you know, Cabrutus or critical of the sort of invasion of critical consciousness into our culture. Because it is like, it's not just gaming, it's like everywhere, right? And when they do that, especially if it is sort of large enough, then left-wing journalists will come out and they will say that this is proof that Gamergate 2 is right-wing. And what you have to do is you have to just shrug and say, okay, then. Because I guess, like, just caring about free speech, that's a right-wing thing. All right, then, I guess it is. So I guess we'll just go from there, right? And when you do that, you realize that the left is actually very weak. They're weak when you tell them, I don't care what you think, it doesn't matter to me, then they will fall. They will buckle like a belt. So just bear that in mind. This is a framing thing. I've seen it. I've been doing this for 10 years. I know all their tactics. Okay, but anyway, the things that they say in our inboxes is the most evil stuff you've ever seen in your life, said David Bedard, co-founder and COO of Sweet Baby, in an interview with The Verge. Any receipts, screenshots, anything? No? We're just gonna hear it's the most evil stuff you've ever seen, and that's it? Okay, I guess that's good enough. All right. The harassment campaign against Sweet Baby echoes the Gamergate movement of 10 years ago, once again targeting women, people of color, and journalists in the games industry. Again, lies. I mean, like technically I would count as a person of color, and I am very, very much against this woke garbage. But again, I think that Gamergate 1 was nothing. Like it was really very, very limp-wristed compared to what I think Gamergate 2 should be, because these people have to get out of the industry. Like we have to take a stand as consumers, as people who are fans of this medium, as people who love beauty and art. We have to fight these people. This cannot be just about ethics. This can't. It has to be about like essentially restoring beauty to art, because that's what it is. Games are art, and they're art in a way that means that they reflect reality, not in the progressive like contemporary fucking Jackson Pollock way, not that shit. I mean like real art, like real beauty, and they know that. That's why they're against it. So anyway, the harassment campaign against Sweet Baby echoes the Gamergate movement of 10 years ago, once again targeting people of color, women, journalists, blah, blah, blah. But this time, the events are playing out differently. Developers and gamers are pushing back, affirming the kind of diversity these people rail against is here to stay. And after speaking with Sweet Baby employees and spending time with their detractors, it's clear the goals of this harassment campaign are largely a reactionary backlash against trends in video games that cannot be meaningfully stopped. Okay, so couple things to unpack here as well. Reactionary is another one of these words that they use to put you in a box. You know, if you're a reactionary, it means that you're like a backwards thinking, like old person that wants to, that shakes your fist at a cloud, and you want like things to go back to the good old days where women were in the kitchen making babies. Just don't. Just stop. Just don't. Don't acknowledge it. Don't make the case against it. Ignore it. They're just throwing ad hominems at you. It doesn't mean anything. And the other thing I will say is that I don't think the Sweet Baby is winning. I think that more people are activated this time than were in the past. And I'm talking about people who care about their games, people who care about this shit, people who are sick and tired of this progressive nonsense. They're sick and tired of this communist bullshit. After COVID, after the border, after the election, after the inflation, everything that's happening, wars, all of this shit, censorship, this is all commie shit that happened. All of it. And so people are seeing this. It's not just like in our hobbies. It's not just in our culture. But that is a big thing that gets people's attention. When you go to play your Spider-Man game and suddenly you're playing as like some deaf gay girl or whatever the hell it is, and you have to do some stupid side quest, or you got to be Mary Jane for the 10th time, and she looks like, the guy from Tango and Cash. Like, that's like enough to make people go, what the hell is going on here? Like, why, what is this? Why is it people don't like beauty in games? Where's the beauty? Where's the fun? Why is everything political? Why am I watching this person give me a speech, about like their transition in Starfield? Why am I hearing about this? So they are getting sick of it, but it is having like broader impacts, and I think that I think people speaking out against it, there's more of them. There's definitely more of us than there are of these people. Definitely. We just have to be more vocal, and we have to like hold their feet to the fire. They will not win. They will not win. Okay. Sweet Babe. Oh, and by the way, too, they say that this trends in video games that cannot be meaningfully stopped. I beg to differ as well. So here's the thing: AAA game companies, we have to just abandon them. Like because they're going to keep going this way because their budgets are so big, they have no choice. But we have smaller game companies. I've been saying this for a while. I'm a huge fan of the Souls series. And From Software, every time they make a game, and I guarantee you it will happen when the Elden Ring expansion comes out, the Shadow of the Erdtree, I guarantee you there's going to be articles talking about how the game has to be made easier for accessibility purposes. And if they cave to that, it's over for From Software. I promise you. But so far, they've been very good about giving people what they want. And guess what? Those games don't have to be for everybody, even though the journalists want it to be. They think if we make this for everybody, right, then they will be able to impose their bullshit DEI, crap on the gaming, onto the From Software games. But I think that Hayao Miyazaki, the director behind the Dark Souls games, as well as Armored Core 6, I don't think he's going to go for it, because I think if he caves to that, like, he's going to lose his base, which are people like me that enjoy the challenge, right? And I would consider From Software games now, I would say that they're AA games. I think a AAA game is like, a game where you have like motion capture suits and you get like famous people like involved, with doing the voice acting or even the motion capture, like Metal Gear or something from Assassin's Creed games or Call of Duty games. Those are AAA titles, and they tend to cost a lot of money to make, and they take a long time to develop. And because they cost so much, that's where the DEI stuff comes in, because in order for them to fund their game, they got to like follow these guidelines, and that's where you get your consulting firms and your DEI shit. But when you have a smaller budget, that's just like, look, we just want to, like, you end up with a smaller budget, a smaller team, a more focused goal. I think you're going to get better games. And that's what I think it has to be. Helldivers 2 is a really good example. So far, because it is kind of a work in progress, because, it's a live service game. So far, everything has been on point, right? They know what their audience is. They know what their game is. They're not bringing in a bunch of modern political crap. They just want it to be fun, and this pisses these people off. It pisses them off because they want to force all their politics on you. And you could say, get your politics out of my game, but they don't care about that. They're going to push it. So what I would suggest is that you look at AA titles and maybe AAA developers that are not following the wave, but I think that most of them, especially like EA, Activision, and Ubisoft and Rockstar, I would guarantee you Rockstar is going to be like Grand Theft Auto 6 is probably going to be paused. I'm sorry to say. Um yeah, but so what you're going to have to do is you're just going to have to like not give them your money, and that's easy. It's easy to do that. Like I have plenty of games I could play. I got lots of old games I've been meaning to go back to. I'm not worried about it. And I would suggest the same for you. I would suggest that you not worry. When they say that this can't be stopped, it's okay. Don't give them your money. They'll run out, and then maybe the game studios will just like scale back their projects, to scale back the size, scale back the scope, stop hiring Hollywood actors. Video games are not movies. We don't need them to be movies. We need them to be games, right? And then maybe then it will change. Because as long as we, the consumers, make decisions, educated choices about where we give our money to and who we choose to support, and make sure it's not people that hate us, then we can't lose. Really, we can't lose. Sweet Baby was co-founded in Montreal in 2018 by Bedard, who previously worked on games marketing at Eidos and Ubisoft, and Kim Belair, a writer and narrative designer who'd worked at Ubisoft and Reflector Entertainment. Again, yeah, avoid Ubisoft. I mean, I'm not really a fan anyway. And Eidos, is that? I think that they were involved with Tomb Raider, but are they still? Because yeah, you can see where Tomb Raider's going. I mean, don't support that either, or just get the anniversary collection. I think they just did a remaster. My wife loves it, and just play that, or don't play it at all. I mean, none of this has to happen. The narrative development company offers services like script writing, story reviews, and sensitivity readings. Yeah, sensitivity reading is like anti-art. Like they have sensitivity readers going through Ian Fleming books, like the James Bond books, going through Roald Dahl books, going through Mark Twain. So not like new writers, but like classic writers that made very popular books. And they will come for like your favorites. They will come for Heinlein. They'll come for Howard. They'll come for Tolkien. They'll come for everybody, because these people are not trying to make our culture better. They are trying to tear it down. They are trying to burn it to the ground. I know this because I've spoken to them. Anyway, essentially everything that touches storytelling in games, whether creative or technical, Belair said in an interview with The Verge. The Neo Gamergate. So now we're taking the language to another level. Neo Gamergate, is that like neo-Nazi? Fervor surrounding Sweet Baby started with a Brazilian Steam user by the name of Cabrutus. In January, he created a Steam curation page called Sweet Baby Inc. Detected, which, the page description explains, is a tracker for games involved with Sweet Baby Inc. According to an interview with Cabrutus in Geeks and Gamers, he believes Sweet Baby is responsible for forcing political agendas and DEI, the abbreviation for diversity, equity, and inclusion, into their games. All this is true. And they've said it. They've said that you should essentially engage in mob tactics to intimidate people into changing the game to be the way that you think it should. Okay. This goes on for a while. But I think we get the basic gist. I think I'll look and see. Okay, let's jump to this paragraph here. But a look at the clip's full context tells a different story. It's clear that Belair didn't want developers to scare their superiors into inclusivity. Instead, she wanted them to enlist support from the employees, those on the marketing and community side, who stand to receive the most backlash from players if those concerns aren't taken seriously. In reality, Sweet Baby and other video game consultants are contracted by the studios to support the studios' own goals. So now you have this appeal to popularity thing where it's like, well, the studios want it, therefore they're just giving the studios what they want. But you see what the studios want, the studios could be woke too, and that's entirely like it's not just plausible, but it's likely. But you see, the studios are not as important as the customers. So the customers have to adjust their expectations. They have to make their demands. The market has to respond. Otherwise, this will just keep. It's always in very incremental steps. They're just going to keep on creeping a little bit more, a little bit more. You know, Spider-Man's going to get a little bit gayer and a little bit gayer and a little bit darker and a little bit different. I mean, they're already going to make Miles like bisexual. I can promise you that. And when they do, people are going to be like people who are all about like the black representation are going to have a problem with this, and it's too late. You've let the vampire into your home, so you're screwed now. They're going to do it. I swear to God, they're going to do it. And I guess that, you know, like you might be one of these liberals. It's like, well, I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with this. Well, sorry, but that this only, since tolerance is your highest virtue, this is going to go all the way to the extreme. Like, you know, expect to see a non-binary furry Spider-Man in that's also trans in the near future, because that's where it's going to go. It won't be, I mean, until it's dead. Like, that's how they do it. So anyway, they consult, wrote Mary Kenny, the associate narrative director on the forthcoming Wolverine game from Insomniac Games, who worked with Sweet Baby on another Insomniac title, Marvel Spider-Man 2. They do research, pitch ideas, give feedback, and maybe even write scripts, but none of that gets into the game unless the core dev team agrees with it. Sometimes we'll be brought in just to look at a project storyline and give feedback on it to find ways that it can better kind of align with gameplay mechanics, Belair said. Kyle Rowley, game director on Alan Wake 2, responded to a rumor on X that Sweet Baby was responsible for changing Saga Anderson, one of the game's main characters, from a white woman to a black woman. It's absolutely not true, he wrote. Okay, well, again, I don't know about any of that. I think that there was some changes that, according to some, that she was a white woman and they changed it. But I think that ultimately people wanted to play Alan Wake in Alan Wake and not somebody else. So maybe that's where the real big issue is. Maybe that's the important issue. I don't know. But anyway, there is more to this, but it sounds like it's just a retread of the Kotaku article, which doesn't surprise me at all. And of course, you know, they're going to say that the issue is that there should be inclusion, but it should be done well. I don't think there has to be inclusion. I think that's a trap as well. I mean, you can if you want to. I don't care. But if you say, well, there's a way to do it, and I do think it matters, but we should do it right, I think that's giving up too much ground. Like, because what you're doing is you're saying, well, if somebody makes a game, like it could take place in like deepest, darkest Africa, if it has an entire cast of like straight white men, right? And like there's, as long as the game is good, I don't care. I mean, I don't think anyone should care. It doesn't matter to me. I'm not saying I'm for that, but I'm indifferent towards it, you know? So anyway, that is the Verge article. It's basically like another retread. I'm going to add this to the list of what you think is happening is not actually happening, but even if it is happening, it's a good thing. With regards to Sweet Baby Inc., let me know what you guys think about this in the comments. Thanks so much for coming on. What are your thoughts on some of the tactics that I talked about? Because this is what the purpose of these videos is, to sort of talk about how progressive journalists and commies, they use rhetoric. It's like their strongest suit. And I'm not saying it's a strong suit, but it's their strongest suit, is they use rhetoric to gaslight you and make you think, you know, that you're a bad person, or that what is happening is organic and natural, or that there's nothing wrong with it, or whatever it is, right? Or that you both care about the same things. But it's all tactics. Ultimately, they're just trying to destroy the culture. They hate you. They hate this genre. They don't even want to do video games journalism. They want to be writers. They want to be activists. They want to be politicians. They want to be mainstream media pundits. And that's why the people who do like work at CNN or MSNBC or CBC or ABC, you know, or BBC are essentially just as insufferable as these people, because it's the same people. It's the same people. Anyway, thanks so much for coming on. Please like, share, subscribe, comment, and hit the bell. Help me get to 500 subscribers. Thank you so much for hanging out, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Long live Vivian.